Welcome back to all of my people and supporters of Do I Look Sick and Sickle Cell Awareness 365. I am coming back to you today because there is a very important discussion that needs to be had. Here in Atlanta, there is the closing of one of the major hospitals right here in the city, which is Atlanta Medical Center. Um, and as you already know, we're still in a pandemic. Hospitals are crazy. So closing this major hospital also with a level one trauma center is it's kind of a I don't even know what to call it. It's a stab in the heart of the city, you know? um so Candice, I have you on as my guest. You've been on before and I appreciate you spending time to come on here with me again and talking about this much needed conversation. And I definitely want to talk to you because you bring that nurse's perspective and you have like that inside perspective. So I definitely want to talk to you about this. And first of all, see how you are feeling about the closing of this major hospital.
Um, it's a lot to say. It's a lot to say. I'm very surprised that people are making more of a big deal about it because it's a big deal. It's really going to impact the city in a negative way, especially like you said, we're still in pandemic, cold flu season is coming, winter is coming. Right, this is not the time where you want to shut down a hospital, and it's crazy. Like this is the capital city,
Right.
and there will only be now three major hospitals within the city.
I don't even
I
count
think
Piedmont for real.
I know, right? Everybody says that Piedmont, it kind of doesn't count because people don't really. It's kind of like a boutique hospital. Like people really don't go out their way to go there. But I guess maybe they will.
Yeah.
It's crazy. It is crazy. And like you said, there will now only be one level one trauma hospital, Grady. And their wait times have always been notorious. And from what I know, their wait times have been up in the 12 hours. And that's a whole shift. Like, this is ridiculous. So it's only going to get worse. Um, I can't, if I'm being honest, I'm not surprised. I used to work at AMC South, the first hospital they closed. That was my first
Close.
job.
Mhm.
And when Wellstar did acquire these hospitals, I was wary from day one. So I'm not gonna say I'm surprised that this happened. I'm shocked it took so long, but it's also just kind of it's bizarre that they were just able to do this without any intervening from the city or anything like that. It's very weird how they could just shut down two hospitals back to back like that.
Right. Right. And just to back up a little bit, for those of you who are not familiar with Atlanta, um, of course, it's a huge city. There were, like you mentioned, four hospitals right here in the city. Um, three are closer together in like downtown Atlanta. And the one that's closing is one of the other level one trauma centers. The current level one trauma center, if you heard about Atlanta and you heard about Grady, that's what that is. Everybody goes to Grady. And before all of this, Grady's emergency room was trash. Like you
Mm-hmm.
said, you sit an entire work shift. Um, this was before the pandemic, so it has not changed. If anything, it probably has changed for the worse during the pandemic. So, and if you're in Atlanta or if you're not, Atlanta has a huge sickle cell population as well. So those who were going to Atlanta Medical or those offices are being shifted to Grady's sickle cell center as well as Emory Midtown's emergency room. And the impact that Atlanta Medical closing has on the Grady's sickle cell center is Grady's admission is already full. So those people who are going into acute care and need to be admitted are being held in acute care because there are no beds upstairs. And that, of course, clogs up acute care, um, and makes it less beds available for those of us that's in a crisis and need to go. But just all the emergency stuff, like I heard on the news, point blank said people will die because of this, because of the wait in
Mm-hmm.
the emergency room. Um, this does not help my anxiety about going to the hospital
No,
or
not at
anything.
all. Not at all.
Um, and it's a deep hurt to the Atlanta community. And honestly, I don't even know what we can do or what can be done at this rate because they're literally closing November 1st,
Right.
which by then will be today. So, um, so yeah, it's painful.
I'm just hoping that some miracle somebody will reopen it soon. It's very inconsiderate. It's inconsiderate to the community. It's inconsiderate to the staff because they're
Yeah,
trying to make it seem like, oh, we have it covered. I know from people who currently still work, it's chaotic. It was completely chaos. They were not prepared to shut down. They were not prepared to, I can't remember the term they used, but basically rezone their employees. This is a lot of people who are losing jobs.
yeah,
And it's like either you go wherever they send you or you're out of a job. And it's not fair that you get put into a tight position. And a lot of times I was telling people when people choose a job, a lot of times you choose it for convenience. You choose a job because it's in your community. You want to serve your community. So it's like if I wanted to, Wellstar really lives in Cobb County. I'm not from Georgia, so I'm not like completely familiar with all the geography of it, but they're in Douglas and Cobb and Kennestone and it's in Kennesaw and all that stuff. It is not full.
yeah,
This was not their jurisdiction whatsoever. So that was always suspicious from the get go. And so the fact that as an employee, if you live in Fulton County or Metro Atlanta, and then now you have to go work at another Wellstar facility, now you're looking at an hour commute, could
yeah,
be depending on where you live, and it's not fair.
yeah,
And like people were getting jobs that they just weren't qualified for, that they never did before. It was just a mess. It was a complete mess. I'm grateful that I was not employed there at the time because I know I would have been furious. I had people calling me. I was like, y'all know y'all would have seen me on the news if I was still employed there by now because I don't tolerate. I no, you would have seen me by now because
yeah,
it's crazy. It's completely crazy. I would have been furious, furious. I don't like driving far to work. If you're working 12-hour shifts, you don't want to be driving an hour to and from or an hour plus to and from.
yeah,
That's a great inconvenience, and it's a slap in the face to the employees. I feel for them. I hurt for them. It is just not fair. It's not fair.
yeah. And it's also it's not fair to the Wellstar employees, nor is it to the employees at Grady or Emory or Piedmont because
Everywhere.
they're already overworked now.
Right. Mm-hmm.
So I can't even imagine the level of stress
Mm.
that is coming for everybody.
Yeah.
But I keep saying as a society we're getting sicker, and I feel that's very true. And getting sicker, there maybe even less resources or even me personally feeling comfortable with the resources that we have
Yeah.
because I don't feel like they're adequate.
Mm-mm.
I don't I don't feel comfortable with overworked staff, period,
Mm-hmm.
because they can't I don't feel like they can take the proper care of me that I need if they're overworked, if they're
Yeah.
stressed, if
You'll
they're
miss something. You'll miss something.
so it's very hard for me because I'm like at this point, and I've done it before, just deal with a crisis at home. And I know, we tell people not to do that. Go to the hospital, get it knocked out.
But if you're gonna be sitting there for last time I was in the ER, I think it was like 8 hours minimum. I lost count. One of my friends was with me. She said it was longer than that. In my mind, I remember at least 8 hours in the
Yeah,
waiting room before I even saw a provider. And they're having me walk to and from. And it's like when you, like you said, just like when you're overworked, you lose the details. I remember one time I was there I ended up having like double pneumonia. They had put me in a wheelchair behind a wall where nobody could see me. Like, it's just those things that just don't make sense. Like, if I can't breathe, clearly if I hear my name being called, how am I supposed to respond, and if nobody can see me? So these are things that happen when people are overworked. They
Yeah.
do things like this. They miss out on the little details. And like I say it all the time, and everybody else is saying it all the time, it's not a joke. It's serious. People will die.
Yeah.
People will die, and that's why I keep saying I'm shocked that this is not on the news. Is not a bigger deal. It's a huge deal. It's a
Yeah.
huge deal, and people aren't making enough noise about it.
Yeah. It and I don't understand why either. Like,
Mm-hmm.
I don't understand why this isn't getting more notoriety than it is. And sometimes I check out from social media and TV, and lately I haven't seen what's out there, but I do know the hospital is still closed.
Right. That hasn't changed.
So, um, I don't know. It's just, and then I was reading something about Kemp, and it's not really helping his campaign either. Of course, I can't wait to get him out. We're in that voting season. Oh, I was saying something about his refusal to expand Medicaid. Um, puts a damper on the city as well. Not just the city, but just Georgia, period. But it's um it's depressing. And like I told you, I talked to one of the popular, more common hematologist here in Atlanta. Um, and he's right across from Atlanta Medical. And I was really concerned about, even though I'm not his patient, I was really concerned about the current patients he still
Mm-hmm.
has. And I know he has quite a few sickle cell
Mm-hmm.
patients. He
Oh,
was already overworked.
oh yes, absolutely,
so
absolutely. Mm-hmm.
so luckily his office isn't being directly impacted, but I can still imagine the indirect impact because I know you can't even really get in touch with him now for a direct admission, and like it's
It's
already
pointless anyway. Last time, I was told, there are multiple patients in the ER waiting, so he couldn't even admit patients because they were already down there for 12 hours. There's just no movement. There's gonna be no movement. It's just a mess. It's a mess.
so. How do you personally, um, as a patient, plan to navigate that?
I'm I, I'm in the same boat as you. I'm panicking a little bit. I am. I am. I utilize Emory Midtown for my care when I need to. And like I said, last time I was there, it was a few months ago, uh, August. Like I said, I was in the ER. I think it was over 8 hours before I saw a provider. So, and man, it's just getting worse and worse and worse.
Yeah.
And so
Mhm.
I mean, like always, I do what I can to stay out of there. But this is a disease where sometimes unpredictable things happen. Like, you could be the healthiest person on the planet, but it's just the nature of the beast. I go to the hospital maybe once a year, if that. But when I do need to go, I don't want to have to be anxious about whether or not I'm going to be seen or if
Yeah.
I'm going to be given adequate treatment. I know other hospitals, there's no protocols and policies, which is the issue to begin with treating sickle cell patients. Like, just as there's a sepsis protocol or stroke protocol, cardiac arrest protocol, there should be a protocol for patients with sickle cell. And I don't see why it's so like such a big ask. Like, we should not be waiting 8 hours. Like,
So
even when I had the pneumonia, like, I was sitting out there for so long. By the time I got to the room, my oxygen saturation was 80, and then everybody started panicking, right? Because, like, even when you're in the ER, as an ER nurse, I know those are still your patients, and you
yeah,
should still be reevaluating them. Of course, it's not happening when you're short staffed. So it's just it's more intricate than a lot of people realize. So
yeah,
I'm nervous, and then I feel like I'm gonna have to go to another hospital that's not familiar. My doctor doesn't practice there, so it's
mhm,
gonna be a back and forth, making phone calls, and they don't agree. And the way he treats is different from the way they'll treat, and it's a headache.
So when I was admitted last April, I did go to a new hospital. I was thankful that they were open to talking to my primary care. My primary care is knowledgeable in sickle cell care. Um, so they were open to talking to him when I needed things adjusted. But at that particular hospital, they are not used to seeing sickle cell patients. So you don't get the same type of medication that you would
Mm-hmm.
if you go somewhere who's familiar with sickle cell. But and I think I was in there longer because we had to figure out some type of pain schedule,
That's the
payment.
same thing that happened to me.
So
Been there way too long, and I told the doctor that. I'm like, I want to go home.
yeah,
Like,
I didn't want to be here to be
you're
honest.
prolonging this process
Yeah,
by keeping me in here for so long.
yeah. And so there are ASH guidelines, the American Society of Hematologists, that say sickle cell patients should be treated within an hour, no more than 90 minutes. However,
Never.
nobody goes by those guidelines. They're just suggested. They're
Mm.
not like mandated, or they don't really, I feel like the doctors don't even really care about it for real. Nor the nobody really cares about the guidelines for real. That would help us out, but again, in a room full of people in the emergency room, I don't see that happening. And it's like, how do we advocate for ourselves in that moment based on those guidelines and based on what's going on around us? Um, it's just sucky,
Mm-hmm.
very sucky. I also wanted to talk about these acquisitions, and what that could possibly mean for the sickle cell community. So like I mentioned earlier, Novo Nordisk just bought out Forma Therapeutics. Forma Therapeutics is over the hibiscus study. So I don't know if anybody has seen the ads or heard the commercials. Um, but Novo Nordisk bought out Forma for $1.4 billion. Novo Nordisk is very new to the sickle cell space. Um, they have a lot to learn about the sickle cell community. I worry about that because they're new. They don't know. We are the ones educating them. Um, and I don't know. I just worry about these acquisitions and what that looks like for the price of our medications because they're
Mm-hmm.
already super high.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and if it would be backlash for us. I don't know how I feel about that, to be honest.
I always say I'm a victim of the healthcare system, but I also work in the healthcare system, so it's like I kind of feel stuck on both sides.
Mm,
And as much as I do love to help people, I do know how crooked the system is. It's a system at the end of the day,
mm,
and this is a capitalist society that we live in, and everything is about money.
yes.
Um, it's a valid concern. It's a valid concern. Just like the same thing with the acquisition of hospitals, it should cause alarm. Just the same way as the acquisition of pharma companies. I feel like even more so with the pharma companies, and like you said, they don't know, which is, I feel like at this point it's a ridiculous excuse saying you don't know. This is not a new disease
Right.
at all. um, I mean, as far as I'm concerned, honestly, I feel like it's not the most complicated of disease processes either. So it's just like, I don't know. It's just there's just so many excuses as to why there's no progression or we get piss poor care. I don't get it.
Yeah, and I honestly think with racial tensions, when racial tensions were high during the George Floyd thing, I started to see a lot more people look at the sickle cell community. A lot more companies. I can't even say people, but a lot more companies starting to look at the sickle cell community. And I even feel I have mixed feelings about that because on one hand it's like finally we're being heard, we are being seen, we are being helped. But at the same time, I also feel like in certain instances, people profit and capitalize off of our struggle.
Mm-hmm.
That's just black people, period. When something happens, everybody get on board with Black Lives Matter and putting posters and everything else up. I don't think this was any different. Oh, you know, this is going on in the black community. Let's find a black disease to go try and save.
Mm-hmm.
And, I just have so many mixed feelings about all of that. I always say healthcare is messy for a black woman, for black people in general. But I have my own stories as far as my healthcare journey or whatever. So yeah, there's no money in healthy people. These pharmaceutical companies are a for-profit company. Um, a lot of people who need these medications, that have sickle cell disease, are on some type of government assistance. So we were already looking at grants and this, that, and the other to be able to pay for the medications that we needed. So it's just healthcare is messy.
It's very discouraging and anxiety provoking. And like you said, in Atlanta, it's like one of the major cities for a high population of sickle cell patient. It's probably top three. I can't remember. I feel like New York and Atlanta go back and forth.
Yeah,
It's top three probably if we
yeah,
look it up. But it's kind of crazy that there aren't any better protocols in place.
yeah,
There's no protection. I feel like there's no protections for us.
yeah. Agreed. We're just
Nobody's safe. It's just scary. And like I said, I'm just out here doing my best as always, but especially with the closure, it definitely makes things a little more urgent and
yeah,
severe to
yeah,
think about.
yeah. I know when COVID hit, I've always kind of been researching and Googling stuff that would help my health versus harm it. It's a lot of things that we do and consume that can either hurt us or help us. And when COVID happened, I got back into that mode because I was like, "Oh, COVID is at the hospital. I'm not going. I'm
Mm-hmm.
I'm super straight on that." Um, so this is just another opportunity for me to like reset that mind frame. And like you said, the nature of the beast is this disease is unpredictable. Some of the things that I try to do at home is I've always tried to manage without taking any pain meds. And some of the time I do good, sometimes not so much. But I do that because when I'm in crisis and need those pain meds, I want them to be effective. I keep the stronger ones like in my drawer. So if I need to fight a crisis at home because I'm not going to the hospital, I can, but it's still, and I still keep my doctors updated and this, that, and the other. But it's just, you would think the hospital is there to save us in a sense,
Mm-hmm.
and that's supposed to be our place of respite and getting care, adequate, quick care. But that's really the last place that we want to go.
You shouldn't have to beg for adequate. And that's what it feels like sometimes. It's like
Yeah,
I'm begging you.
for
And
basic.
I just did a survey the other day that was asking about that. And honestly, I've seen it and a lot of people see it. Even in the peds, I feel like it's very important. I mean, not important, but apparent, sorry, that the disparity between because they lump hematology and oncology together for some reason. I don't know why. But on the hematology oncology floors in pediatrics, it's just so obvious the difference in how they treat the patients
Yeah,
and even the families and the resources that are available, even the employees. I remember I was an intern and the social worker made a joke. She's like, even their social worker got a new iPad. I didn't get a new iPad. You work in the same department.
right.
It's ridiculous. It's just how blatant can you be? It's just a slap in the face. So it's like with the oncology patients, they have pain. One of the major symptoms, most common symptoms of sickle cell is pain. So
Yeah,
why is it that it's so easy for they just throw narcotics at them? You want 100 pills? Have at it. You want 20 milligrams IV? Have at it. But when it comes to us, it's like, do you think I'm faking? Do you like? I don't want to be here. I don't understand. Like I
Yeah.
have to beg for 2 milligrams of something. Like it's just
We,
ridiculous.
like you said, we shouldn't have to beg for just basic care,
Basic care.
adequate.
Basic care. Even without the narcotics. It's like just do your job. That's my one thing. Even as a nurse, I'm like, just do your job.
Yeah.
At its basic thing. Like fluids,
Yeah.
oxygen,
Reading the chart.
something. Like even it's just like you're so stuck on this narcotic strain that you won't even do your basic due
Yeah.
diligence. Like let's get some IV access, let's get some fluids on board, let's get some oxygen on board. I remember I was being discharged and the doctor came in and was talking about put her on oxygen. I've been here for days. It's too late. I'm going home. Why do you want to put me on oxygen now?
Yeah.
It's just ridiculous. Like, come on. It's just do your job. I don't understand. I don't think about race and gender and this, that, and the third when I'm doing my job unless it's relevant to the patient.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter. You treat what they're here for.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
treat the person in front of you. I always say I don't treat diseases, I treat the person. I don't treat numbers, I treat the person. At the end of the day, our
Like,
professors always said you can see a number on a monitor, you can see a number in a lab, but what does your patient look like in front of you?
yeah.
I treat people. I don't treat papers.
We need to duplicate you and just put you all over. Because that's super important.
It's just basic. It's
Yeah.
basic healthcare, and I think that's just gone out the window.
Yeah, it has. It definitely has. And like I said, I think things have just gotten worse with the pandemic and COVID and all of that. It's just, I say that sickle cell was on the back burner before. Now we're not even on the stove. We ain't even in the
Mm,
oven at this
mm,
point.
mm, mm.
We,
Not on the prep table.
right.
It's not on the menu at
It's
all.
not on the menu at all. It's like, what? Sickle cell, what? What is that? Yeah.
I don't know what happened between the
It's
90s and now. Something happened.
it's
I
really
don't know.
sad, and I'm often thinking of how to fight it, how to navigate it, what I can do to. And a lot of my advocacy work is really not just for the community. It's because I want better for myself,
Exactly. Exactly. I
and
agree.
I go as hard as I do because I want better for myself.
Mhm.
And everybody else will reap those rewards when I fix it for myself. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Everybody else will be impacted if I can fix it or if I can adjust something to make it better for myself.
Because people are always like, "Oh, why don't you name drop or tell them you do this?" And so I'm like, I shouldn't have to.
Yeah.
That's my thing. I just don't like it. I don't like when people do it to me. I think it's very obnoxious. But I shouldn't have to.
Yeah.
I shouldn't have to name drop
Yeah.
or tell you what I do or tell you I know what's happened. Like I shouldn't have to do that. I
Yeah.
should have full confidence in what you're doing. And last time I was sick, I was doing a lap around the nurse's station, and I just was thinking to myself how privileged I am. I feel bad for the people who can't advocate for themselves, who don't know better. Like I catch so many things. Like my doctor ordered the wrong diet. I think he just ordered a protocol. Like there's just grouped orders. He just ordered something. Like I called to order lunch, and they're like, "Oh, you can't order that. You're on a restricted diet." I was like, "Why?
Mhm.
Why? Like you're just clicking buttons. Like wake
Right.
up and pay attention. Like, what are you doing?" Like, I had to call him out. He's like, "You don't." I was like, "There's sugar checks on my chart and restricted diets on my chart." He's like, "You don't have diabetes, do you?" I was like, "No, I don't." What are you doing? Like, what are you doing?
Did you not read? Did you not prep before you came in here?
Like, what? Like, it's just crazy. And then he was just like so la di da about it. It's like, pay attention. If you can make a mistake about something as thankfully benign as my diet, imagine what other mistakes that you could be making.
Yeah.
And thankfully I have the wherewithal to pay attention and to catch that. But
Yeah.
in that moment I felt horribly because I'm like, that's not the case for most people.
Yeah.
They don't know what's going on.
Yeah.
They're at the mercy of the provider, and it's a scary thing. It shouldn't be, but
It
it's
is.
frightening.
It
It's
is.
very frightening.
And it's I worry about my friends who don't have the advocacy knowledge or even the audacity, if you want to call it, or
Confidence,
to,
courage.
yeah, courage, confidence to even speak up or speak against their doctor.
Hmm.
Um, at the end of the day, you're the only person living in your body. I don't care how many degrees that doctor has. He can't tell you what it's like being in your body. I
Mm-mm.
always say I have to be the PhD of Mia. I need to know the ins and the outs, what's going on, if it's a twitch here, where's that from? I will Google my symptoms in a heartbeat. It's not to the point where I feel I'm gonna die tomorrow, but
Even the structure of how we receive care. Because I remember years ago, we would get treated by our specialist, and now it's like, no, you need to be treated by the hospitalist and then consult your specialist. And it's like, why? What am I paying you for?
yeah,
Because you're not doing anything. You're not doing anything for me. And it's just so crooked. Like it's just extra money to someone who doesn't deserve it. You didn't ask me no questions. You didn't touch me. You didn't assess me. You don't even know what's going on.
mm,
They come in and they look so clueless. I've had so many awkward interactions with these internal hospitalists. It's ridiculous. They're so clueless,
yeah,
so awkward, so uncomfortable. It's like, why are you here?
yeah. They needed a
You're
job.
just gonna go to the desk and call my doctor anyway.
I can call my doctor myself.
Right.
I can call my doctor myself. But yeah, it's a mess. I think I'll probably give myself a migraine trying to figure out how to navigate it. And I really think the bottom line of trying to fix these things, unfortunately, is fixing racism, and that's going to be around for as long as we're here. Um, that's not anything I feel that can be fixed. As much as we can talk about it, we can address it, put it on a table, but fixing it, I don't know. It's how this society is run, unfortunately. So, as a black woman, I'm clueless on that one.
Same. Same. I just do my best to take care of me. That's
Yeah,
what I can do. And when that time comes and I have to show up there, I just hope for the best and pray that I'm not unconscious.
right.
That's like my biggest fear. Oh my god.
One of the
It shouldn't come to that. Like you should not be afraid of going to the hospital.
right.
It's
I don't feel like I should have this much anxiety about going to the hospital. The last time I had to be admitted, I went to the emergency room, and I am not one of the ones that will hoop and holler, um,
mm-mm.
screaming in pain. For me, that does nothing, that makes it worse. Um, and I'm talking to the doctor about what's going on with me, and he was like, "Well, most sickle cell patients come in here and they're rolling around in bed and screaming. You look to be fine. COVID's here, and we're going to send you home." And I looked at that man and told him, "I'm here by myself. If I can't communicate to you what's going on with me, how the fuck do you know what's oh
Mm-hmm.
how do you know? You know what I'm saying? How do you
It's
know?
like damned if you do, damned if you don't. Like
Exactly.
they don't like the stereotypical patient, but then you do something different and then they don't believe you.
Yeah.
Because
So
even when I was trying to go home, they're like, most sickle cell patients, they like to stay here for. I'm like, I'm not most sickle cell patients. I don't know what these other people be doing. I'm not them. I don't want to be here. Like, and then it just feels like you torturing me on purpose
yeah,
just to keep me here for long. That makes no sense. You should want me to get out of
you
here.
should want me to go. You should want to go ahead and treat me
It's
properly.
just backwards.
Yeah. It's super backwards.
Like
Super
you're
backwards.
begging me to stay here. That makes no sense. I want to
Yeah.
go home. I want to
And
go home.
by the time the other doctor came in, I was frustrated. And usually when I'm crying, I'm not crying because of the pain. I'm crying because I really want to go off and
Yeah,
I can't. And
yeah,
I can't. That's why I'm crying. But by the time the other doctor came in, I was crying. I was like, I don't even want to be here. If I didn't have to come, I wouldn't have come. If I could have
right.
dealt with it at home, I would not be
That's
here.
what I'm saying. I'm like, I shouldn't have to explain that concept to you.
Yeah. So
You think I just was bored? I wanted to get in my
right.
car and drive
That's when you go
myself
to the
here
hospital. No, if I'm
and do
that bored, I'm
something.
gonna go to Six Flags or some shit, not to the hospital.
Right.
Go to the selfie museum or something fun. Not
Something. Even the last time I went to the hospital, I noticed they like there was no parking in front of the ER. I'm like, where am I supposed to put my car? Like, you want me to park in a parking garage and walk all the way down?
That's,
I was like, what the heck is going on here? That
that
was so crazy.
that
It was
blows.
just literally blocked off. I was like, where are people supposed to park?
Now it's
Um,
supposed to be ambulance parking. So yeah, my mom had to go to the emergency room, and my niece took her, and I was gonna go and wait with her and just bring her on back home. And I was like, I gotta park in the parking garage. I'm already not feeling my best, but because I need
mhm.
to be there for my mom, so I gotta go park in the parking garage. They don't even have it now to where you can enter the emergency room through the hospital. Like, you know how you can take the bridge over and just take the elevators down to the emergency room? You can't do that. I literally had to walk around, go outside,
If
and
you
go
have an
back.
emergency, who can do like that makes no sense. And what if you drove yourself? Like if I drove myself out, you know where my car is gonna be? Right in front of that ER.
Exactly.
How am
Exactly.
I supposed to get in there? Like it was hard enough to drive myself here in the first place. It's just so ridiculous. It's like that makes no sense.
Backwards, like you said. It's very backwards. So yeah, um, but I appreciate you coming on here and discussing this. I know we just wanted to vent about it. I'm really hoping sometime soon that things turn around for Atlanta Medical Center. Maybe somebody else will buy it. Pretty sure these other hospitals got enough money to buy it. Um,
I'm
so
praying.
agree.
Not even just for myself, but just for the community. Like I just like I keep saying, I just don't understand why nobody's making a bigger deal about it. Then they're gonna make a big deal about it when it's too late.
Yeah,
But I just pray that it reopens. Both of them. Both of them.
yeah,
And my heart goes out to my, former coworkers and my colleagues. And I keep getting these contracts for jobs here. And I'm like, there just isn't enough money to pay me to like I just couldn't imagine. So my heart goes out to all my colleagues in the healthcare community who's having to deal with the repercussions of this closure. Um,
yeah.
it's rough. It's
We gonna
rough.
pray for them all. Pray for everybody at this point because it's a hot mess.
Mm-hmm.
So thank you again. I really appreciate it. For those of you who are out there watching, please make sure you go and vote. Look it up, look up the ballot, make sure you understand what's on the ballot so you know what you're voting for, so that you know the people that's running and who they are, what they stand for, and just make sure you do your research, exercise your right to vote. That's one way of getting change to happen. It might be slow change, but change nevertheless. So thank you guys. Thank you, Candice, for having this conversation with me. Maybe we should
Thanks
keep
for
talking
having
until
me.
something happens, but
Hey,
but we shall see. But thank you.
absolutely. Thank you so much for having me. It's always a pleasure to
Yes,
talk with
ma'am.
you.
Yes, ma'am. So you guys have a great evening, and we will catch you next time. Bye.
Bye.